Good morning and welcome to Daily Tanya. Today is Monday, the 20th day of Menachem Av. Today is the yahrzeit of the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Yitzchak. They called him Rabbi Leivik. He was a Jew, a leader, a rabbi, a Kabbalist, who lived his life with Mesiras Nefesh, a man of truth. He was the rabbi of the city Dnipropetrovsk. Then it was called Yekaterinoslav. Now it's called Dnipro in Ukraine. And he stood up against any attempt to weaken Jewish observance. And he stood up against the government, against the communist government, and he was arrested and then sentenced to exile in Kazakhstan, and he passed away. And indeed, he's buried in Almaty. And today, there are big, huge centers, Chabad centers, both in Dnipro and in Almaty. Hundreds of people come. And today, they're there for bringing in the big Chabad house that there is there, and in the Ohel there, hundreds of people coming to pray. So Schusa Yogal Aleinu, may His merit protect us. And it's connected with the Tanya we're going to learn today, which is talking about seeking the truth, seeking to serve God with truth. So let's begin with tzedakah, the Deila tzedakah, Shemekaravas Esagula. Charity brings Mashiach closer. So, we are holding in the middle of letter 6, סימן Vav in Igeret HaKodesh, the Alter Rebbe's letters, which we started yesterday. The Alter Rebbe speaks about Zeireya Tzedakah Ches Secher Emes. Planting tzedakah is being rewarded with truth. And we were wondering, what does that mean? Not just that the reward is a true reward, but the reward is truth. So we started explaining yesterday that there is a way of serving Hashem in the level of Yaakov, which represents Tiferes, represents compassion, and that is by meditating and understanding the greatness of Hashem and the greatness of the neshama that is in us. And that soul, that godly soul, if you think about where it's coming from and where it is now, that is a big pity in the neshama. It's a big pity. You say the neshama is forced to be in such a place where there's darkness and concealment of the light. The neshama wants to be connected with Hashem, with God. So this awakens Hashem's Rachmanas. When you awaken, when you think about this Rachmanas you have in your neshama. How does this connect with tzedakah? This is what the Alter Rebbe is going to explain now. He's going to explain. And again, this is a letter that Alter Rebbe writes as a fundraising letter to people to support, to give tzedakah, even people who cannot afford it. They should give tzedakah nevertheless to support the people in Israel, which the Alter Rebbe was collecting from for those people who made Aliyah back then, who had nothing of their own. And the way the Alter Rebbe explains and encourages the people to give is by explaining them the depth of what really you do, what really happens when you give. And he says, to the people who are really seeking to serve God in the best way, to connect to God. And he tells us, you want to connect to God, do it through tzedakah. Why? So Alter Rebbe explains because there are two ways of how a person is able to awaken his feelings of love to Hashem and fear of Hashem. One way is by contemplating what we just said. you contemplate on the greatness of Hashem, the more you understand, the deeper your feeling of awe and fear and love to Hashem. When you understand all the good things that God does for you, it develops feelings of love. And when you understand the greatness, the awesomeness of Hashem, it develops the feelings of fear and awe and shame. You're fearful of being disconnected. And obviously there are many, many different levels of how much a person is able to develop the feelings. But all of this is limited because whatever happens, whatever comes from your own doing, being that we are limited, so the feelings that we can generate are also limited. They're limited to how much we can understand. God is beyond and above. We want to achieve something greater, and that is something that you cannot achieve on your own. It is a gift that God gives you. When Hashem gives you the gift of fear of God or love of Hashem, it is something that comes from God. This is after a person works on himself, he can get a gift, receive a gift from Hashem to achieve that deeper connection, the true connection of truth, because that is the ultimate truth. Your own truth may be limited. God is the ultimate truth. So searching for truth, you can only happen when you get it as a gift. It happened in history, in the time of when God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. It says, Kofa alei markegigis, God put the mountain on top of them. And he basically coerced us to love him and to fear God because he revealed himself. But this was not because of anything we did. Now, says the Alter Rebbe, when you do everything on your own, and then you ask Hashem from the depth of your heart, you ask Hashem, Rahmanas, to give. This is when Hashem gives you the gift, and you're able to receive that gift of having true connection to God, having true feelings of love and fear of Hashem. How is tzedakah? How is tzedakah connected? Giving charity? That we'll see inside in a minute. So let's see inside. Says the Alter Rebbe. V'inei, moidas zois deyesh beis minei dechilu urechimu. Now, it is well known that there are two types of awe of God and two types of love of God. Orishonos einan oilodos me'atvuna ve'adas begdulas Hashem ubedvorim ha'evim lidei ahavas Hashem v'yirasei. The first type of love and fear, they are born of an understanding and cognition of the greatness of God, and of those matters that lead to love of God, the love of God, and to the fear of Him, such as God's closeness to the Jewish people. But the latter ones, the latter ones are those that come afterward from above as a gift. After one has acquired a love and fear of God as a result of his own contemplation, he's then granted from above a heightened measure of love and fear. As explained elsewhere, in comment on the verse, I shall grant you your priestly service as a gift. So priestly service represents the priesthood, refers to the attribute of love of Hashem. Also, just tell us the Cohen represents the chesed, the love, the Levite represents the gvura, the fear. So the gift, the priesthood is given as a gift. And in a sense, this is a gift when we're talking about the spiritual priesthood, not just the Kohanim. Even a person who is not a Kohen can become the idea of Kohen. He can also receive as a gift. As the Maimonides says, anybody who decides to commit to the service of God and connect to Hashem, he can also become, in a sense, not in the literal sense, but in the idea, to become connected to God like the Kohen. Sheimidas Ava, this priesthood refers to the attribute of love. And the same thing is true also with fear of Hashem, can also come as a gift. And it is likewise with regard to awe. Meaning, there is a degree of fear of God that is likewise granted as a gift from above. Now, the Alter Rebbe goes on to say that obviously you cannot compare the two types of love and the two types of fear. Those who are generated from your own understandings are very limited. Those who come as a gift from Hashem is obviously not limited. It comes from Him. Now there is surely no comparison between the first ones, the lower levels of love and fear, which are produced of the created intellect. And the latter ones, which are a gift from the Creator, blessed His name, blessed be His name. So just as, and there can be absolutely no comparison between Creator and created, so can there be no comparison between the love and fear generated by each of these two levels. That is why it is these latter degrees of love and fear, ones that comes as a gift from Hashem, these are referred to as truth. Because the seal of the Holy One, blessed be He, is truth. Shehu emes o amiti, because He is the true truth. We all have our truths. But who is to say that our truth is the ultimate truth? The ultimate truth is Hashem. And in relation to Him, all truth among created beings is considered as nothing. Since God is absolute truth, but the love and fear that emanate from Him are deemed truth as well. And now the question is, how do we achieve this truth? How does a person able to achieve a true feeling of love and fear of Hashem? Because after all, what we feel, by our understanding, may be very biased. We think we love Hashem. We think we fear Hashem. But to really get the true connection to Hashem, this, says the Alter Rebbe, happens by awakening the compassion, the great compassion and the godly soul in our soul, the godly spark in our soul. Says the Alter Rebbe, but which is the way whereby a man can merit the loftier love and fear that are termed the truth of God. It is by arousing great compassion in God's eyes for the spark in His soul. As we learned yesterday, you have compassion on this godly spark that comes from such a great place, and now it's imprisoned in the physical body. And this is the level of Yaakov. That truth is the level of Yaakov. This attribute of compassion is the attribute of Yaakov, who bolts from one end through the other. through to the other. When the tabernacle in the desert, when they built it with beams all around, and the beams were connected with 3 bolts. There were 2 bolts on the top, and the lower bolt were beams that were placed in the rings from the outside, and there were 2 beams on each wall. And then in the middle of the beam, there was 1 bolt that went through and through. As the sages tell us, even it was a miracle that beam curved all the 3 sides by miracle. That refers to the beam of Yaakov. The beam that goes through, the bolt that goes through from one end to the other. That is ultimate truth, from the top to the end, to the bottom. That is from the uppermost of all levels to the nethermost. Causing the truth of God to flow to this lowly dark world, as it is written, when I sit in darkness, God is a light unto me. And this is the meaning of the phrase, for his kindness has prevailed over us. And the end of that verse says, and the truth of God is forever. So the kindness of God gives us the truth. How do we awaken this kindness? So we said, by awakening, by feeling the pity and the mercy and the compassion over that spark of God that is within us. However, the question is, in order to awaken God's compassion, in order that your arousal of your compassion also needs to be done with truth. How can your limited physical compassion, the limited compassion, how can this awaken God's compassion, which is the ultimate truth? So this is what the Alter Rebbe says. In order to do that, it happens through giving tzedakah. And we'll explain why. It says the Alter Rebbe, however, this arousal of God's great compassion also needs to be done in truth. וגם כשהוא באמס שלוי, איך יוכל על ידי אמס שלוי, לעורר רחמים עליונים מאמס השם. But even when it is true in mortal terms, I really mean it from the truth of my heart, but your truth is not the ultimate truth. How by means of relative truth can one arouse supernal compassion from the truth of God? So for this, as the Alter Rebbe, this happens through tzedakah. Because when you awaken yourself and you actually give charity to a person who does not have of his own, you give it to causes, positive, holy causes, people that don't have of their own. That is done in truth. There's a story that Reb Mendel Futterfass, the great Mashpia, once told that the Alter Rebbe, when he went to Mezrich, to his Rebbe, the Rabbi Magid of Mezrich, he once passed in an inn of a very wealthy Jew who was very generous, and anybody, poor people, he would always bring into the house, and he would have them fed and attend to all of the needs. And then before they parted, they came in and to the host, and he would give them a nice sum of money to be able to support themselves for the future. And he did it for a long time. And then one day, the Alter Rebbe passed by that inn on his way to Mezrich. And that person saw that the Alter Rebbe was not an ordinary Jew, and he decided to open up his heart and to talk to the Alter Rebbe, and he tells him, I have a problem. I know I'm doing all of these things. I'm feeding the people, I'm helping them, and by the end of the day, he says, I feel maybe I'm not doing it with truth. Maybe all of this, what I'm doing, is really worth nothing because I'm doing it for makes me feel good, makes me feel respectable. Everybody says I'm doing such great things. So maybe the whole thing is not worth what I'm doing. So the Alter Rebbe put down his head, and he leaned his face and his head on his hands, and then he lifted up his hand and he told them in his famous niggin, the way the Alter Rebbe would sing, he says, "Ober der ore man, wer doch sagt mit an emes." He says, the poor man who you feed, he is truly becomes satiated. That he really means it. When he receives it, he receives the money with the truth. So it doesn't matter whether when you give tzedakah, do you think it with truth? But the person who needs it receives it with truth. And the Alter Rebbe says, and then that truth will draw down the emes Hashem ba'olam, the truth of God, into the world, into you. That in you also you will have the truth. So here the Alter Rebbe says a similar thing in the Tanya. When you give tzedakah, you give it, the tzedakah is something of truth. And that arouses the true compassion of Hashem, because you're doing something, giving something to someone that has nothing on his own. The solution recommended for this is to practice the attribute of charity, which is the attribute of compassion for he who has nothing of his own, to revive the spirit of the lowly. And the arousal from below elicits an arousal from above. Hashem that God rouses those who sleep and awakens those who slumber. And what is it? Meaning he rouses his great compassion and supernal attributes of kindness which are concealed in the state of sleep, so that they emerge from concealment into manifestation and into a great illumination, so that a man is illuminated with the light of life, with the truth of God unto the world. And that's the idea, says the Alter Rebbe. What he began the letter with saying, Zeireya tzedakah, when you plant tzedakah, you plant charity, it makes the truth grow. This then is the meaning of the idiom of sowing related to charity, as in the verse with which the epistle was opened. He who sows charity, or as in the verse, sow for yourself for charity. One thereby causes the supernal truth, the truth of God, to sprout. Just as a plant that sprouts reveals that which was previously sown and concealed. This is achieved especially through acts of charity and through kindness that are done for the benefit of the Holy Land. May it be built and established speedily nowadays, amen. thereby realizing the verse, truth shall sprout forth from the land. The land alludes to both the land of Israel, here below, and the Sephira of Malchus above. Attribute of Malchus, al yedei zriyas hatzdaka ba, by sowing charity in it, v'chesed v'rachamim rabim v'nesofim v'nilkotim b'seicha, and the kindness and great compassion that are gathered into it and gleaned in it, they correspondingly arouse the supreme grace that are hidden and concealed in it. As it is written, how great is your kindness which you have hidden, so that the land is established and set up firmly. So both Eretz Israel and the sphere of Malchus of Atzilus must be buttressed. The latter because of its descent in order to serve as a source of created beings that are lower in the world of Atzilus. The world of Atzilus, of course, is the world first of the spiritual worlds, and from there it is revealed to all the rest of the worlds, including our physical world. And this is, and of this it is written, through tzedakah shall you be firmly established, referring to the establishment of the congregation of Israel here below, as well as to its spiritual counterpart above in the sphere of Malchus of Atzilus, which is also known by the same name, Eretz. And this is the end of this chapter, the end of this beautiful fundraising letter. And now the Rebbe gives us a deeper understanding what we can achieve the connection to God in truth, and that is done through tzedakah, which is doing a similar thing what Hashem is doing by us helping others in truth. Hashem, that arouses Hashem's compassion to us. Thank you so much, and we'll see you B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow, starting the next letter.